Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Breaking Brews podcast, a podcast focused on the business side of beer and what's driving today's thriving craft beer industry. Whether you're one of the thousands of people making craft beer what it is today, or just love great beer and want to know more about it, this show is here to cover everything from sales, marketing, branding, culture, and much, much more. The Breaking Brews podcast delivers real-life scenarios and experiences from industry professionals that will help your beer knowledge evolve. To tap into more great beer content, visit breakingbrews.com today. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's get this session started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, turn up the volume and shine up those earbuds. It is time for session 15 of the Breaking Brews podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cercone, back at you for another brand new session this week. If you haven't done so already, jump back in the archives. Sessions 1 through 14 are waiting just for you. Let me know how I'm doing with the show by jumping over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. Lets me know what I can do better and helps the show find the ears of more beer enthusiasts and beer professionals just like you. You can also subscribe to the podcast over at iTunes, also on Stitcher, Google Play Music, and Spotify, and stay up to date on everything about the Breaking Brews podcast, including show notes and much more at breakingbrews.com/podcast. All right, guys, we are going to dive headfirst into session 15, and as I've said in the past, every fifth episode, I like to cover some various beer marketing aspects, and today I've got a great guest to help me do just that. I'm joined by Bailey Allegretti, who is the marketing manager for Grist House Craft. Bailey's been working with Grist House for a little over a year at this point, and they're marketing on point, doing good things with social media. The email newsletter that they put out every week is very informative, quick and to the point. We're going to talk about that. So if you've been thinking about implementing some email marketing strategies, Bailey's got some great advice for you. We also talk a lot about other strong aspects of social media marketing, clean and dirty glassware, as we seem to talk about and rant about on the Breaking Brews podcast from time to time. All good stuff. All world you're picking up this podcast. The information here is applicable to your practices, and we're going to have a good time. Bailey and I had a blast rapping about different marketing techniques and a lot of things that we see in the world, and we're pushing this out to you guys so you can learn a little something too. So if you're not driving a vehicle while you listen to the show, crack open a beer, grab your notebook, and let's get ready to listen to session 15 of the Breaking Brews podcast with Bailey Allegretti, marketing manager of Grist House Craft Brewery.
I had a podcast for like a hot second and would always just wait for my friends to say something really terrible and butt in with the beginning.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We used to do that too. That's what I've been.
Funny.
We'll find a jumping off point here eventually.
I understand.
Well, Bailey, welcome to the Breaking Brews podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're one of the very first studio guests.
Oh, this is exciting. You have like the egg crate stuff on the walls and everything.
Total pro. Total pro.
Super exciting.
I got tired of all the background noise and whatnot, and I'm sure our listeners did too. So it was
Nothing
time.
better than fun.
Indeed. Only downfall is it's in this little room in my basement that I put together, and
It's okay. It's not that creepy.
Well, we're in a good time of year. No, well, yeah, I've got it
safe.
It's well lit. It's well lit.
It is very well lit.
Yeah, nothing creepy, no weird shit on the walls.
No.
But, I mean, I am nerdy in the fact that I have wrestling figures on the shelf, but that's about
I think that's okay.
that's the extent of it.
There are worse figures to have on your shelves.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. So Bailey is the marketing manager at Grist House Brewing here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she's come on the show today to talk to us about the marketing side of beer. It's a subject that we've tackled here on the show a few times and will continue to do so as episodes unfold. So happy to have her in the house sharing her expertise. Before we roll into the ins and outs of what Bailey does on a daily basis with Grist House, why don't you give us some background on yourself? Where'd you come from? What got you into craft beer? All that good stuff that tells the story of Bailey.
Sure. I'm originally from Rochester, New York, so I might as well be Canadian. I don't know why I said
Are you that close?
way.
Canadian?
Canadian. Sorry. I'm originally from Rochester, New York, so I'm basically almost Canadian.
You're trying to work that accent in there.
Oh, yeah. Canada.
Canada.
Yeah. The longer I'm away from home, actually, the more Canadian I sound. So hopefully that doesn't come across too much here.
You're picking up a Canadian accent in Pittsburgh instead of the Yinzer accent.
It's weird. Yeah, my Rochester accent has gotten worse since I've been home, or since I've lived here, and I've lived here for almost a decade. It'll be a year at the end of this summer. Growing up, I was an only child. I grew up around, Genesee Brewing Company and all that kind of stuff. So when I went to college and everybody was drinking Keystone, I was really confused. But my stepdad is really the one who got me into craft beer. My stepdad, Tony, he and his brother were super into specifically Sierra Nevada Celebration Ale. And this started, 2005 maybe. And I remember them always getting it whenever it came out. It was this really exciting thing. So kind of the first craft beer I remember not only was craft, but was seasonal, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
So immediately I was intrigued by the scarcity of this liquid product. But over the years, he just slowly introduced me to new things and helped me push what the basic jumping off points for most craft beer fans are, which I would say is, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale and Blue Moon are usually people's first drink that doesn't taste like a frat house smells. But he would always bring me new stuff. I remember I think I was 19. It was after my freshman year of college, and he gave me a bottle of Pumpkin. And it was, I think, the first year that it was ever out. So I want to say,
2013?
Anyway, I remember I was supposed to go out with friends after dinner, but I drank the whole bottle during dinner. Not really first time I ever got drunk in front of my parents. It was great.
And you did it on good beer.
I did. First
time I ever did that was on Seagram's 7, so my story is not nearly as classy.
Yeah, I did it on decent beer, and it was just funny, and I definitely liked beer. I was always the girl at the frat parties who didn't need the Jell-O shots or anything. Always wanted to prove it. The first beer I ever learned how to chug was a Guinness. Like, I don't know. I've got a bit of a competitive personality, so that fed into it. And then I moved here, and then I went to Mad Mex, and from there, I became the aggressive beer nerd that I am today. So started with my stepdad, but Mad Mex was my teacher for sure.
I need to go back we'll talk about Mad Mex, because for our Pittsburgh listeners, Mad Mex to be a very hop forward bar, but lots of diversity. They always have great beer on tap there.
And they always have great bartenders.
Oh, I agree.
Fantastic
100% agree.
bartenders.
But I have to ask, so you're chugging Guinness. Are you talking like car bombs, Irish car bombs?
No, like full pints.
Just to the house.
Yeah.
Full pints. What are you, out of your freaking mind?
Completely.
Sounds
it was one of those that I realized pretty quickly that people were afraid of stouts because of the color and had absolutely no idea what you get a Guinness.
So you wanted to make it disappear before they got frightened.
Well, it was also, like I said, I'm highly competitive and I like to scare away boys by showing them that I'm better than they are. So there was a bar in Rochester that we went to all the time the summer after I turned 21 called O'Callahan's on Monroe Avenue. And I think it was every Wednesday night they had buy one, get one. You'd get a little token. You could get another drink.
Yeah.
Going through a Guinness phase. And at one point, someone was, you can't chug that. And I was like, clearly you don't know what you're talking about. And it's carbonated differently, so it's kind of easier to get down. And I was just...
Valid point.
From there on forward... It just became a stupid thing that I did from time to time. Haven't done it in years, so let's not do that.
Grown up now
anymore.
Grown
up.
Mad
Now
Max
I only do it when you drop Irish cream and Jameson whiskey into it.
Shotgunning double IPAs instead.
No.
Hey, everybody evolves and everybody grows up. So let's talk at the top of the show here. Bailey is the marketing manager at Grist House Brewing in Pittsburgh. Tell us how you came into that role, how long you've been working there, and give us some updates on the brewery and how things are going.
Well, kind of funny. I do not have a degree in marketing. I do not have a degree in graphic design. I want to put that out here to start with, just because what is my dream job through nothing that I expected to happen to me.
Yeah. Familiar path.
Yeah,
I did not expect you to be doing what I'm doing these days, and
exactly. I mean, I don't.
Find what you love.
Yeah, I have a degree in communications and psychology, the two basic white girl majors, which is fine.
I got the communications.
There we go. So straight out of college, I actually started working for a place that isn't here anymore, unfortunately, called Copper Kettle Brewing Company, which was a brew on premise where people would make appointments, come in, somebody would teach them how to brew on a small barrel or small kettle, and then they'd come back however many weeks later and bottle it. And I was originally just the secretary, and by the time I left, I had learned how to brew for myself. I was designing beers. I did everybody's customized label. I had built the website. I was running all of the social media, and they gave me a lot of opportunities there. That way, when I decided to leave, I had this resume that said I had 5 years worth of experience doing marketing, even though that's not what I went to school for. So I just kind of lucked into a job. After I left there, I had a hot minute where I thought it would be cool to work for a country club. And after about 10 months, I was like, fuck this. I missed beer so much. And it's not necessarily, everybody's like, it's a cool job. It is. But then the kind of people you work with in the brewing industry is so unique.
Yeah, no
and
doubt.
The fact that this is more of a community than it is a competition. It's not you versus me, it's you and me versus the big guys. That just the way you're dealing with your competition is so much different. So just for a year going into a place where it was like, no, they're my direct work for me, there was something really, really missing. So I kind of got on the horn and really started to apply everywhere that I could. And then a friend sent me this Facebook message being like, Grist House is hiring a marketing manager, and Grist House has been my favorite brewery in the city since they opened 5 years ago. I was shocked to see the listing when I got called in for an interview. I am not a nervous person. I was shaking the whole time, and I've been there now for just over a year. So it was really interesting to come into this place that I already had an impression about, look at what was going on, and then need to figure out how to pick apart something that I already loved, which was kind of difficult.
What made you fall in love with Grist House?
Well, at first it was the atmosphere. When I started going there, for anybody who's familiar with Grist House, we have a huge outdoor area now. When they first opened, it wasn't a me back then. When they first opened, it was basically just a patio and a small bit of outdoor area. Most of what's outdoors now you could park in. But just going and hanging out outside is something. Granted, we loved that was always kind of an option. I've always just loved the beer too. Hazeldelik Juice Grenade was probably the first New England style IPA I ever had. Or at least the first local one. I'm sure somebody brought me one from somewhere. I loved the beer. I loved the atmosphere. Going in there and seeing the same golden retriever multiple times. I did not have a dog, by the way, at the time. So I wasn't going there because I had a dog. I was going there to pet other people's dogs.
So it's therapy.
And then on top of that, it's a brewery that kind of manages to have a neighborhood bar feel to it, which I think is something you don't get at a place where you can hang out. And I used to hang out there all the time. I still do, obviously. But a lot of times you go into these breweries and they're set up specifically for you to go in, grab a flight, sit down with your friends, and then leave as soon as that flight is gone. And this is not a place that is set up for that.
Yeah.
It's set up for you to come in with friends, hang out, talk to the bartenders, grab a couple of beers, grab something from a food truck, and then bounce.
Right.
Whenever.
I can attest I've spent many hours
Yeah.
simultaneously
And
at Grist House before.
I'm
for sure.
sure a lot of your listeners will identify with this. Is I am a bar sitter. If I go to a restaurant and if my husband and I go to a restaurant and there's 2 seats at the bar, but we have a reservation at the table, we will give the table away to sit at the bar.
My girlfriend and I do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I love the conversation from a bartender. I love that feeling of they're not coming out of their way to stand next to your table and look at you and ask if everything's okay. Kind of there just to be like, hey, give me a wave if you need anything.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And I really like to learn about what people have on tap, and just and Grist House always gave me that feel of being where everybody wants to sit at the bar.
That's great. And obviously it made, like you said, even though you were nervous, there had to be a part of you when you were going into that interview knowing, just because of how much you enjoyed that vibe, how well you'd fit in there, and how good of a job you'd do for them because you love it so much.
Yeah, if the 2 owners, Brian and Kyle, were anything like I thought they were going to be, I was going to be fine, and they were exactly who I thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
Even better. They're just great guys, and I work for great people, and it's a dream.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, let's before I want to talk about your role a little bit more, because we're going to talk about beer marketing as a whole. But for those in Pittsburgh, I'm sure you're privy to this, but for our listeners outside of Pittsburgh, Bailey mentioned Grist House has a tremendous outdoor area, but very recently purchased probably the biggest building in freaking Pittsburgh to put a brewery in.
Yeah, I think it might be.
So when you guys expand, you freaking expand. So let's talk about the missile silo.
Yes.
That will be a brewery in the near future.
Yeah, we bought the former Missile Command Center for the Nike Missile Program, which was an air defense program from the Cold War era. And silos set up around Pittsburgh, and all of them got this building. And this building is 55,000 square feet. A lot of work. It's absolutely enormous, and it's sort of an embarrassment of riches at the moment. And designing the plan for Grist House now with that in mind is definitely an additional challenge, but a challenge I'm really excited about.
Yeah, having the opportunity to tour the space, it's there's so much room for activities, I think was the comment we were dropping when we were walking around. It's just enormous. But paired with that is the history behind it. That's such a cool story that you guys get to tell. So in collaboration with all of the great beer and all of the good things you'll bring to that venue, you have this rich history of shit that happened that, again, I mean, I don't think I ever knew that building was there and what that whole project was before you guys took over and I got to hear about it. It's tremendous. I think a lot of Pittsburgh is going to hear about that. And I know when I did tour, we were talking, or when I did the tour of the facility, you and I were talking about how some of the people that used to work there have reached out.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool too. And
yeah, and people who have worked in Nike missile bases in other countries or in other states have reached out wanting to kind of talk about the history of everything. And we would not have purchased that building if we didn't want to preserve that history. So that's been really exciting for me just to look into.
Do you have a rough time frame on when that'll be open? Is it hard? It's probably hard to pinpoint. Yeah. A lot of ground to cover up there.
Well, we really, really want to make sure that when we tell the people who love Grist House that it's going to be open, it's going to be open.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We don't really want to get ourselves into a space where everybody's excited for opening day, and then opening day winds up being 6 months later than we expected it to be. So right now we're playing it close to the vest, but we do really want to keep everybody engaged, because what was really interesting is we were faced with this issue of, we've purchased this building, we're doing this expansion, it's going to take a very, very long time. Should we keep this a secret until we're like 6 months out? Or do we tell everybody now? Mm-hmm. And I feel like if we had tried to keep it a secret, everybody would have known anyway.
Probably.
And we would have all just had to be coy about it for however many months or years. And that just seemed ridiculous.
Yeah, how do you coyly avoid that, dodge
You'd be
that?
like, oh, I don't know. What are you talking about?
Bought a missile silo? You're out of your mind.
I mean, right now we just, on the Millvale property, we just tore down a apartment building that's directly next door, and everybody wants to know what's going where the apartment building was. And since there's a gigantic hole in the ground right now, I have taken to telling people we're putting in a swimming pool.
Sweet. You should just say it's the pit, like on Parks and
I
Recreation.
know.
Right?
We just need Andy Dwyer just rolling around in the pit.
That's the last thing you need is people falling in the pit after a night at
That's
Grist
true.
House.
Stay away from the pit. Please don't get in the pit. But I think with something like what's going on in Millvale, it's easier to be like, look, it's going to be pretty quick. We'll tell you when we have all the information. Something out there, it's so interesting, and we really wanted to talk to people about what they were hoping to see. We wanted to get feedback, and we just decided that the better way to do it was to come out with it, tell everybody what's going on. And we've been doing a monthly blog, basically to keep people up to date with what's going on. The second we're able to do events at the space, which, I mean, that could be forever.
Right.
But whenever that happens, you will know. And we'll let everybody know as soon as we can, because information is a commodity, and that everybody who loves Grist House has all the information that they can have.
And the first thing that happens when you set a date and then something happens where you can't meet that date, the Facebook conversation flies, and then you get the "is Southern Tier still open" crap, and that's a pretty inside joke for all of us Pittsburghers here. But yeah, that's you're doing it right. It's better than, because then you don't have the pressure of trying to hit this arbitrary date either.
It feels
so
secretive,
cool.
but honestly, we don't know either. It's a lot of work, and we want to make sure every bit of the work is done right. So
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's segue into your role at the brewery. So give us a day in the life of Bailey.
What I am tasked with every day is making sure our website is up to date, making sure we have our social media stuff handled. So that's across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I also do all of the design work. So posters for events, all the graphics that you see on Instagram, all of the can artwork. I do all that too. So I happen to have a background in graphic design just from having taught myself. Again, I didn't go to school for this. So I do anything that has a graphic touch to it, anything that goes through a computer, anything that goes through a smartphone is pretty much what I do. There are days that are heavy with submitting labels to COLA, to the TTB. There are days that are full of media. There are days that I just knuckle down and do 2 or 3 possible can designs just for everybody else in the brewery to take a look at and kind of decide if we'd want to do something like that. So the days vary, which makes my weeks very exciting. But at the end of it, basically what I do is I make everything look pretty and make sure that everybody has all the information that they need.
Were a lot of these practices in place when you took over the role? Or is this stuff were these practices you had to put into place?
Yeah, these were all practices that were put into place. And while they did have a social media presence before I came on board, it wasn't no one had sat down and devised a plan for the social media. No one had sat down and figured out exactly what is supposed to go where and when and why. So that was definitely a number one most important thing, was to get down the new, all the graphics came later.
Makes sense. And that's something that it's been preached on this show many times, is regardless of what your plan is, you have to have that plan. Really not going to be successful, especially with how many companies out there that are doing it well. If you're one of the ones that's just firing bullets blindly, you're not going to hit the target many times.
No, it does. There's a small part of me that every time I see specifically bars that really need help with their social media or their website, their online presence, I always want to send an email and be like, do you guys need help? But
tell me about
people
it.
don't respond well to that. And also now I'm not doing that anymore.
Well, right. Well, and I mean, I'll tell you, I've noticed that a lot, and I'm not above asking at all, because I'm genuinely curious, and I feel like there's something that I could do to help them in some respect. But you're right, some people don't take that well. And actually, what I've discovered is a bigger problem is that it's just not a priority.
Right.
Where it absolutely should be.
Right.
Because it can do great things for your brand. Clearly, Grist House realized that because they brought somebody on full time that can manage that segment of their business and do it the right way. So
I think one of the biggest mistakes that specifically restaurants and bars and stuff in this kind of area make is not understanding that the three major social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, are all completely different social media platforms. And if you're posting the same information across all three, you're really, really missing an opportunity.
Yes, you are.
There's so much opportunity if you understand how to use these platforms and how to properly get the information out there. We all know that putting up a sign saying where the bathroom is doesn't mean that no one's ever going to ask where the bathroom is anymore. So making sure that you're on your Twitter feed doesn't mean that no one's going to call and ask what the Thursday night special is or when trivia is, but it's going to make it less people. Mm-hmm. And honestly, there are a lot of people who had that question who didn't immediately find the answer. And not only did they not call you, they just decided not to come.
Well, and there's also the flip side of that is not only are you providing that information that isn't a place where it can be found, but you might put it in front of somebody that wasn't thinking about that. That, hey, look, they're doing trivia over at Grist House night. Let's go over and check it out.
Exactly. And I think that is the biggest issue with a lot of people is not understanding how best advantage.
I know this has been talked about on the show too, but it's one of those peeves that I don't mind talking about continuously until we can fix it. Is the cross promotion of posts on, like, for example, you can post the automatic. Yeah, like I'm not a fan at all, and also clearly you're not either.
What that teaches anybody who follows your Twitter is that all they have to do is follow your Instagram. They now know they don't need to follow your Twitter. Right. Because whatever's on your... So why would you bother following both? Also, they're just not used for the same things.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue. And it being in the visual world that we're in, if you go from Instagram to Twitter, you don't get the image without clicking on the link. And then if you're not logged in, you got to log in. It's extra steps. And
that's wild.
And I talked about this back on session 5, and you can go back and listen in the archives about compartmentalizing your social media networks. And each network can do different things for you. Twitter, for me, the most power in Twitter comes from the conversations you can have.
Absolutely.
And reaching out to accounts and people that you never in a million years would imagine you'd be talking with, but Twitter gives you that power.
Yeah, and the Twitter thread is more important than the original post a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And that's where you look at some, like, I'm going to use TikTok as an example.
I have not delved into TikTok
Don't.
Okay,
I refuse to ever delve into TikTok. It looks like the most annoying thing. I'm probably looking at it from a short-sighted view.
Is it true that you can't record things in landscape on TikTok?
I really don't know, and right now, where I was going with this is that no, you're fine. With TikTok, the comments that people are leaving from being inundated with these shitty ads are way funnier and more creative than any of the ads themselves.
Absolutely.
And I was looking at him again today because I blocked it on Facebook because it was just so constant that they were every day in my face.
Yeah.
And my buddy kept saying, like, why don't you just block it? And I was like, because this is fun to comment and just say stupid shit about.
Yeah.
But
true.
I think in the long run, I'm pretty sure, at least from the limited reading I've done on it, that TikTok is big in Europe.
Gotcha.
Is it going to be the next big platform in the United States? I don't know, because what it seems like it is like another version of Vine.
Yeah.
But we've got the capability of doing short videos on Instagram on Twitter,
stories.
On Facebook. Yes, you've got this already. Is there room for another network to come in and take over? I don't know. That's a rhetorical question. But
I don't know.
But my point with that is like you were saying, like the content that goes along with it, the thread becomes more entertaining and more informative. These threads have some funny shit and just shows the creativity of the users. So that's my rant about TikTok.
I heard that it like won't let you take video in landscape, which portrait mode videos are a whole other podcast, so never can.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So again, I think the point that Bailey and I are both making is that in compartmentalizing your social media networks, you can get the most from each of them, and you obviously want to use them for different aspects to build your brand. So
exactly.
Yeah, trying to cross promote and do it all, like, yeah, it might save you a few extra swipes, but it's not really doing anything for you. Because I would say probably 99% of any user that clicks on that Instagram link and it doesn't immediately go to the image is done.
Nope,
They're
not gonna
out.
try. Not gonna try again.
Exactly.
Sometimes I don't even click on it because I don't care enough.
Yeah, and you're right. And it cuts off the content after a certain bit too, so it can fit within the confines of the tweet. And you're right.
I get it.
We're very short attention span these days.
Well, especially when you have stuff at your disposal like Hoot Schedule.
Yes.
Like it takes an extra maybe 5 seconds to copy paste that into your Twitter and have it originate through Twitter. It's just it's so easy.
It is. I think
I'm not saying my job is easy.
No. I think that's the thing to remember here is it's absolutely not easy, but there's a strategy behind it.
Yeah.
And this is where I think it goes back to the initial point we were making is like Grist House saw they had a need for someone to come in and do this. They hired you. I work with a couple businesses that feel the same way, and that's what I do for them. And it makes sense to put somebody in that position that does it and knows it. I don't want to say in and out because we're learning shit every day. I'm sure you can attest to that. But you're staying on top of trends and new developments that help you do your job better. When you've got a lot of different things to prioritize on a daily basis, fitting that in can be difficult. Yeah. So I get it. I understand the need to want to make a time crunch and take a shortcut. But in the end, it really doesn't help your brand.
Yeah. And I think that maybe the reason why we see a lot of businesses not using social media to the best advantage and not hiring somebody else is social media is one of those things that if you're of drinking age, it started in your lifetime and you use it. So everybody kind of feels like I was here when this started. I use it on a daily basis. I can do this myself. And that's fine, but you need to make sure you're doing the proper research and understanding the way that these metrics work and understanding the way to best utilize that tool. You can utilize the tool, but you can also do it wrong.
Are you looking for a better way to attack your social media efforts? Do you need help developing a plan that will help you maximize your initiatives? Do you feel like you're doing nothing but wasting time on sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then it's time for a jumpstart. Check out the Breaking Brews Social Media Jumpstart and discover an easy way for us to join forces and take your business to new levels. From a complete analysis of your current presence to an intensive strategy session designed to develop and execute your plan of attack, the Social Media Jumpstart is a great way to build a foundation that will lead to long-term results. To learn more, visit www.breakingbrews.com/jumpstart today. And even professionals do stuff wrong from time to time. So what are some initiatives or campaigns that you've tried that have worked, and what are some that maybe fell short that you thought might have had some legs?
At Grist House, we started trying for home events per year. And the first one we really tried was last year. We did something called Firefest, not the one from the documentaries, and came out before the documentaries.
So purely coincidental?
I mean, I was like, hey, you guys remember that disaster thing? And everybody was like, no one's going to think about that. Everybody forgot about it. And then the documentaries happened.
Did
and it was
you
like,
Grant post like an orange square or
oh,
a
it
green?
should have been.
Absolutely should have been.
Oh, God. The burnt, did they call it burnt?
Burnt
the
orange.
Burnt orange square. They don't even call it a square. A tile.
And you could have gotten, sorry. Like get Rick Seaback as an influencer to tweet that shit.
But it was weird because this was in winter. It was snowing, and the big pull was that we were releasing 3 cans and that we were going to have a whole bunch of fire pits so you weren't too cold. And immediately, we had thousands of people interested. It was wild. I wasn't expecting it at all. I thought we were going to have to push a little harder to be like, hey, get out in the winter. And when we announced it, there weren't even that many details. We hadn't even announced what beers there were going to be or anything like this. So it was what it did. And then we very recently, as in this past weekend, as of recording this, did a second large home event, which we were calling Brunch at the Ski Lodge, which we had a great turnout to. But as far as the response on social media, we had so when you put it on, I'm talking specifically about Facebook events. So we listed the events on Facebook. for this brunch event, 800 responses of people either saying they were going or interested. For the Firefest, we had like 12,000. It was insane.
All organic?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I still am not sure what the difference was, especially since we had a very great turnout for this past weekend. It was a Saturday versus a Sunday, which I think plays a lot into it, but I don't know why the Firefest thing was just immediately everywhere from the second we posted it.
I wonder if, and this is probably wrong, but I'm just going to throw it out there.
Please.
That stupid Firefest. I know
I
what
wonder.
you did prior to this documentary that really has brought it back into the prime time and in the spotlight. But
it could just
maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. Like it's
semantics is sometimes part of it. You're right.
Yeah. So these are two things that I've noticed, and I have no idea why. There's an art to interpreting the statistics, and for this one, I am at a loss. But we're going to be doing both events again next year, so we'll see if something needs to be done one way for one thing and the other. It's really interesting to have seen that, and we post also all of our can releases as Facebook events. And it's funny to see which ones get way more attention than others.
Yeah.
Because they're all going out on the same thing.
Based on
promoting them all the same way.
Based on style, like beard style? Sure.
Oh, yeah. Announced 2 new can releases. One is a Goza and the other one is a double IPA. Both of which we've done before. Mm-hmm. So both are returning styles. The double IPA, people love this beer. There's like 65 people being like, I'm going to that. I posted these this morning. Or yesterday. The Goza, everybody in Pittsburgh is excited about. I don't understand. It's wild.
Maybe, and again, I'm just speculating, but a lot of breweries are doing great IPAs.
That's true.
Not many breweries are doing a very good Goza.
Yeah,
or
do.
Nevertheless canning it.
I will
or
say,
not to mention
we do
canning
very,
it.
very good sours.
Yeah.
Our fruited sours are really, really something special. And I'm an IPA girl, but boy, are those sours good.
Yeah, I think what you may have hit on too, I think people, obviously if you're into something, your friends are typically into it too. It's one of the things that brought you together whenever it brought you together.
Of course.
An example I always remember, it's a shame that it ended up becoming the shit show that it did, was the very first installment of the Taco Fest here in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
That went live, that event, and it just went viral within minutes. Everybody was like, oh, Taco Fest. It's like, it was ended up being a shit show. I'm very, very sure there's a new group running it, so it's well managed now, and it's in a bigger venue.
I mean, I can't wait to see what happens to Picklesburg next year.
Are they doing 2 bridges?
I sure as shit hope so.
I think that's what I heard.
That was not only...
Now that it's number 1, it was voted number 1 in the country.
Which is unbelievable. It was... Not only was it poorly run, I was scared.
I've never gone.
To be there.
Never gone.
I had friends in from out of town. They wanted to go. We were like, cool, why not? I was honestly scared. It was so out of control.
Just so many people.
So many people. And so this is a festival that's set up on one of the sister bridges in Pittsburgh. So if you see those classic pictures of Pittsburgh, there's the 3 yellow bridges that all look the same. This is on one of those 3. It's the one that ends right at PNC Park. It's the Roberto Clemente Bridge. Mm-hmm. And the entire festival is on that bridge, which means that they put all the vendors, including both the only 2 places you can get beer, on the bridge, which makes no sense because there's
no flow.
Also, that there's the 2 actual lanes of traffic on the bridge, and there are sidewalks, but those sidewalks are over barricades, so you only have 2 lanes of traffic, and then there are people walking across only one of the sidewalks. There are people jumping barricades, trying to get out of the way. And then there are all these people parked in the middle of the tent because they want a beer. Of course they want a beer. Who doesn't want a beer? And it was honestly scary. I think that the fix is easy. You put the beer tents on either side of the bridge, not on the bridge, or have more beer tents. Yeah. I don't know, just a thought. But like they at one point needed to completely evacuate the bridge because it was over capacity and starting to strain.
See, that's where I'm looking at, like, why are you trying to have it on a bridge
I don't know.
when it's that popular?
Especially since that bridge ends in front of PNC Park on Federal Street, which they are in season.
Yeah, for Kids Day and whatnot.
So why?
Sure.
Why? It makes no sense. Just do better, Picklesburg. I'm here to help.
Again, maybe they didn't anticipate that number of people coming out for it, but
I didn't have a single pickle. I was really upset. The second I got on that bridge, I was like, I'm getting off this fucking bridge.
So to bring this back to zero.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. No, to bring this back to zero.
You're gonna have a whole outtakes episode.
We're looking at the fact that Facebook events can, and I've said that on the show before, Facebook is one of the best event management platforms in the world. Probably number one. That's the one I always rely on, as do many people. And I think that it shows that if you put an event out there that people give a shit about and you market it the right way and you utilize their platform to discuss the event and share things about the event and as it develops, to a point where you have to evacuate the bridge.
Yeah. And honestly, the best thing about something like a Facebook event is you're basically dictating where people ask questions. Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure, as I want to make sure, in my role, I want to make sure every single question is answered before people decide it's not worth it. Because let's be honest, nowadays not everybody is calling.
Right.
They're going to take a look around the Facebook page. If they can't find the answer, they might comment on the Facebook page, but they're probably not going any further than that.
Yeah.
And it's a nice way to be like, this is where you ask questions. This is where I am constantly checking this. I will make sure to answer your questions as fast as possible. And it's nice to offer that to people because then they don't have to hunt for the right way to get their answer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Assuming you're responding, which you should be.
Yeah, absolutely should be. Yeah. Yeah, don't ignore when people message you.
No.
Please. Well, let's shift gears a bit. I'm going to assume that you also do the weekly newsletter that comes from Grist House. That was a very easy assumption to make on my part.
Yeah.
So I know that's a topic we've never really tackled here on the show, so I wanted to pick your brain about it a little bit.
Sure.
The weekly Grist House newsletter, I believe, comes out every Tuesday.
It does.
You can subscribe on the website. But tell us, why should a listener go and subscribe to your newsletter right now?
So one thing that I think a lot of newsletters promise but don't necessarily deliver on is we do actually make sure that people who things first. I think that that's kind of the reason why everybody says you should subscribe to their newsletter, but then immediately the information is everywhere else, which is something that I just don't think makes sense. So if we are announcing new beers, we are announcing them on the newsletter on Tuesday. I do not put them on Facebook until Wednesday. So you are actually finding out a whole day ahead of time what's coming out. So we are giving extra information. We have also given away a couple of things in newsletters. We'll hide questions every once in a while to be like, hey, what's your favorite blah, blah, blah. Best answer gets something or something or another.
Yeah.
We did a trivia question a little while ago, which was fun to give away tickets to an event. So a lot of the stuff that if we get giveaway stuff, instead of putting it on the social media, we're putting it in the newsletter. Also, it's a nice way to stay up to date with what cans we have in stock, what our actual upcoming can release schedule is. We announce all that stuff on our newsletter. Ours in particular is short and sweet and to the point. It's not, it doesn't necessarily look short because it's very colorful, because it is chock full of pictures. So you do not have to read this newsletter if you do not want to. It will all be there for you in big, pretty graphics so that you know exactly what's going on, which I think is a big fault of a lot of email newsletters, is I will open them, I will see a big block of text, and I will be like, I don't have the time. That is an email that I'm probably not flagging to look back again at later. Whereas I have our newsletter set up so that you can scroll through and you'll know exactly what's happening. I think that maybe that's a really good reason why it's a great thing to subscribe to,
Nice.
Because instead of having to go hunting for all the information is right in your email box, and I can pretty much guarantee you can take all this information in about 30 seconds. If you want to read further, we do put extra info in there, but all the basics are right there. Big, bold pictures, you know exactly what's going on.
That's something you may have to remove yourself from what you do for the Grist House newsletter because you do such a good job with it. But I've always wondered, is this something that's going to eventually go away because all of the information that's within these newsletters can be found on social media or a website? I mean, I know just personally how much I get inundated with, and I've been getting better about unsubscribing from things that you're not supposed to just sign. Like, people buy email addresses and throw you onto these lists, and then you're stuck. Like, I hate that. Don't ever do that.
No, not planning on it.
And no, not you. I'm talking to the listeners.
Yes, of course.
For all of our folks that are learning something about email marketing, do not just take addresses and throw them in without permission. But I've always been looking at this model, and I've listened to podcasts that talk about it. They still say there's some power to it.
Sure.
And I don't know. Personally, I think I'm subscribed to enough newsletters that I look at that I see the faults, where I just wonder how powerful of a medium is this? What is their open rate on something like this?
Right.
Because if you're not getting anything from it, after a couple times, you're just going to be like, fuck this. Either you forget to unsubscribe or you just delete it when it comes to you. Do you feel this is a platform that's going to have legs for years to come?
So I think that there are certain industries where the newsletter is going to continue to be powerful, particularly like lifestyle blogs and stuff like that. But I do see people moving away from email kind of in general as a source of communication outside of business. Mm-hmm. And that makes it a little difficult. I think that it's going to be a long time before people abandon it because it doesn't cost you anything, is sort of the feel to it. It does. I mean, obviously, eventually, depending on how many emails you're sending out, you do have prescriptions. You do have subscriptions to these things like MailChimp and Constant Contact, platforms like that. And because it seems so low maintenance, I think it's going to take a really long time for businesses to begin abandoning it. But I think if you see a steady open rate, if you see good, I highly recommend doing stuff in your newsletters that you can immediately know if people are paying attention, like doing a giveaway for the answer to a trivia question that you only put in the newsletter. Because if people respond to that, then 100%, not only are they opening it, they're engaging with the content. So that's kind of a nice way, and to give back to the people who are actually subscribing to your newsletter.
Right. I
think a lot of companies kind of take those people for granted and are like, well, they're just there. We might as well throw this content at them. And it's just content without worrying about what the kind of content that person wants. The idea that you can get all this information other places, that people are putting it on their social media, that they're putting it elsewhere, makes sense. And that's why I've started to think of a weekly newsletter essentially as like an RSS aggregator, kind of like if you put in an RSS feed reader. So it's essentially me taking all the stuff that I'm going to be talking about that week on our Instagram or on our social media and just condensing it to one email. So it's sort of a way for people to get a quick heads up, a quick download on the week without doing too much effort and without feeling that they need to be on top of anybody's social media at any given time.
See, I think that's where, in my opinion, it's there versus, like, for example, Old Navy. Jesus, they send like 3 emails a day.
No, none of that.
Edible Arrangements, I had gotten one for my office at an old job, and I got put on their email list, and I think it was Valentine's Day. 5 emails throughout the day.
Wow.
And I get it, that's a holiday, but they were just relentless to the point where I was like, I get it. Obviously, I'm a fan of yours. I've bought your product. So I unsubscribed from that just because it was overkill. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing it weekly and it's something that you're doing consistently, every Tuesday, it's coming.
Right.
There's some power in that. But if there's brands out there that are implementing this now or looking for good ways to make it work, this is the way to keep it succinct, get people to engage with it, give them a reason to be subscribed.
Exactly.
And it's gonna add some value to your practices.
Definitely.
So let's have a little fun here. Let's talk about some things that you see some brands doing with their marketing that just makes you shake your head and wonder what's going on here. And again, not doing this to be mean. We want to pinpoint some areas that can be improved upon.
Sure.
So fire away.
Don't post text graphics on Instagram, please. Instagram is for photos, and it's always rough when you look at someone's their actual profile, so you can see their Instagram feed, and half of them are just words that look like they were made in word art, and they're cut off at the sides because they're not actually just confined to a square.
Yeah.
Which, it's fine to post things that are wider than the square, but you need to make sure that they look good in the square, because when people are looking at your page, they see the square, not the rectangle.
Right.
That's something that I think goes into the people not understanding that Instagram and Twitter are for two different things.
Right.
So trying to post your Twitter content on Instagram, instead of that could live in your story. I think Instagram stories are a highly underutilized part of that platform, especially now that you can save stories to your page.
Oh, yes. That's one of my favorite parts of Instagram.
If you're a bar, you should absolutely have a little story on your page that has your daily specials in it, so that people can click through no matter what day it is. They can click on that. They can see what your happy hour is. They can see what your Monday special is, your Tuesday special. Yeah. And it's stuff like that that's kind of, I think, the big sin of this industry, that there's really no excuse to not be posting that stuff frequently. I mean, especially Twitter, is if I'm going out to a bar and I want to see if there's any specials going on, I look at somebody's Twitter, then I go to the website, then maybe I'll check Facebook, and if I can't find them, I'm going to find somebody with better specials than you clearly don't have any. But it's so possible to just have that stuff ready to go. And that all being said, scheduling posts can also be really, really bad. So if you're going to schedule posts ahead of time, I recommend only doing them a week at a time and not having reoccurring posts.
Yeah.
While they can be extremely helpful to have something that's scheduled to just go up every Tuesday, being like, it's Tuesday, we're doing whatever our special is, $1 off Smirnoff drinks or whatever. You might change that special and forget to take that down, because it just automatically posts every week. Mm-hmm. The amount of times I have gone into a bar and ordered something and been like, wait, but this is on special. And they're like, that hasn't been around for 3 months. And I'm like, cool, you tweeted about it today. Not only is it still on your website, you're still currently actively tweeting about this, because clearly you set this up months ago and then just never thought about it again.
All right.
Just because you can schedule your social media ahead of time doesn't mean that you don't have to check on it.
Yeah.
Especially because people might be trying to talk to you. Mm-hmm. So if you're not checking your Twitter to see what you're tweeting, you're probably also not checking the messages.
We talked about the conversation part of it, and that's where we go back to that compartmentalizing aspect of your social media. If you're doing your Twitter from Instagram by just pushing your posts from there over, if you're not ever looking at that feed, you don't know what you're missing from the conversational side of it. Right. Somebody might have sent you a message like, hey, caught this tweet. Can you tell me more? And it could have been somebody that was bringing in a 20 top. I don't know. I'm really spitballing here, but you could miss out on big opportunities just because you're not monitoring.
Yeah. I think that the craziest thing that I've started to see way too frequently within the past couple of years, and I blame Wendy's for this, is that Wendy's is very funny on Twitter.
I love Wendy's.
I get it.
I tout them and use as an example, or use them as an example.
But when you are not the size of Wendy's, people aren't necessarily coming to your Twitter for jokes. And while those are great, I'm not saying that you can't make jokes, is that I have seen far too many bars and breweries get themselves in trouble recently.
In the world we live in, you have to be careful anyway.
No matter what.
But I see what you're saying.
I think that once you start doing that, people start playing fast and loose and just tweeting anything. And again, I'm fine with people being funny on Twitter. I like posting jokes on Grist House's Twitter feed too, but I'm very careful to make sure that I'm not posting opinions. I'm very careful about the articles that we retweet too. You know, I feel a certain way about things in today's world, but that has no business in my business.
Right.
So if I want to retweet somebody just really handing it to the man, I'm going to make sure to switch to my Twitter account and retweet that. Grist House is not retweeting that. And I don't know if it's a lack of visibility or if it's like a lack of insight or if it's people just not actually switching back and forth between them. But I think that a lot of times somebody's like, this will be funny, this will get a reaction, and then your brewery is canceled the next day. We've seen this a couple of times this year with people saying things that just made absolutely no sense. You don't need to put yourself in that situation. You don't need to try to shock people. You need to make sure that the people who love you have the information that they need, and you need to make sure that somebody who wants to find you can. And I get it, and I like having fun, and I like having fun with the people who love you, but it can get into a situation where you can't really come back from it. And I think that being careful with social media is not necessarily something that people are looking at. And it can really, really ruin you.
Again, I think this is more testimony for why you should put somebody in charge of it that knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. And this is also with people in their daily lives and their personal lives. You're playing with this thing that is so powerful that it doesn't feel like a weapon, but it can be.
Indeed.
And it needs to be taken seriously. It's not just something that's kind of there and is fun to play with. It's something that can make or break you, and it will make you a lot slower than it's going to break you.
And we transitioned to being a social web probably, 15 years ago? That's where I still find it troubling that businesses, even people as individuals, have not grasped that this is the society we live in, and it's only going to continue to grow in that respect.
Right.
And I think, there's a lot of talk about kids not being on screens. And while I have a daughter, and I completely agree with, you're not going to let them stare at a screen for 9, 10, 11 hours a day, because I equate it to when I was a kid. My mom and dad didn't let me sit in front of the television, which was the medium at my disposal at the time. I wasn't sitting in front of the television 9, 10, 11 hours a day. They would get your ass outside and play baseball or play with your friends, whatever. So I think the same responsibilities as parents have to be there as we raise our kids, to not spend 9, 10, 11, 12 hours on it. But let me ask you this question. When you were growing up, did you talk on the phone a lot?
Constantly.
Well, there you go. It's the same thing as a child being playing games on a phone. You didn't have the medium that they have. So it's as long as you use these things responsibly, it's not going to rot your brain.
Right.
Which I think is the fear of a lot of people. But what you have to understand is that our society has shifted to where this is how we learn, this is how we communicate, this is how we inform, and this is how we promote our businesses. If you can't get on board with that, you're not going to make it. It's just eventually it's going to catch up to you.
And I think that you can even look at it not as just promoting your business, but just making yourself visible to your customer. You don't have to be out there posting advertisements. You don't have to use branded content. You don't have to purchase content. You just need to make sure that when somebody has a question, you're there to answer it. And that's what social media is for. It's there for you to be social. It's not just there for you to throw things around.
Right.
And I think we give it credit for. And I learn that every day, is that there's a better way to make sure that everybody knows what they need to know. And I also feel someone somewhere posted something about the fact that they feel like their dark beers get drank less because they're black.
It's terrible.
Why would you make that joke?
That's terrible.
It's somebody trying to make a joke and then going, it was just a joke, but it's not a good joke.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
And that's the thing, when that's the immediate response, that wasn't the context it was meant in.
Of course not.
It's just so short-sighted and just, downright ignorant.
And yeah, I can read that and know that you didn't mean to be hurtful. Know that you were trying to make a joke, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not funny.
Right.
And it has no business anywhere close to your brewery. has no business being there.
Or as an upstanding citizen, you shouldn't be posting shit like that on your personal account
just
either.
Don't say things.
If every thought that was tumbling around in our heads came out, we'd all be fucked.
Oh my God. It would be, everybody would be like, she's definitely an alien. That's all I think about all day.
So someone that takes pictures of beer, I have to ask this question. And this is the running topic on the show, and I think it's hilarious. And I'm going to bring up something that was passed along to me because now I'm now the clean glassware guy because I keep
yes!
all my people that have picked up this podcast have been sending pictures of look at this dirty glass just because they know it gets me going.
Are you kidding me? I am this close. For people listening, I'm holding my fingers really close together. I know this is an audio medium. I am this close to making a ghost account for Instagram just to comment #dirty glassware.
Who has that kind of time?
I can't post it from Grist House, and I don't want to post it from mine because then people could link me to that. But I want these people to know that they are posting pictures of dirty glassware, and I don't care about you, the citizens. You can do whatever you want in your home. But if a bar posts a picture of a dirty glass, I just want to.
You can't, as citizens, you can't either because this is why. A,
I agree.
Come on, don't be disgusting.
Fine.
But B, no, and I talked about this.
You're right. It's not fine.
I'm bringing back session 5 stuff. Go back in the archives and listen to this episode. But no, because as a citizen or as a beer enthusiast, you're backhandedly representing the brand that you're taking a picture for. If you're putting it on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, because typically if it's from a can, you're taking a picture with the can. So you're representing that brewery. That brewery doesn't need to have a picture floating out there of their beer in a shitty, dirty glass.
Very, very, very true.
So I didn't even get to the question. How do you feel about dirty glassware? Feel free to gather your thoughts and
oh my God, it drives me crazy.
We'll come back.
It drives me crazy. And like I was saying, I totally agree with you that there is you shouldn't be posting any photos of your beer in dirty glassware, but when a bar does it
it's the worst.
Or a restaurant does it, and there's just a clear oversight that the reason it looks like that is because it's dirty. It's just and that's a lesson that needs to be taught because now I'm not coming to your bar as somebody who not just as somebody who works in the beer industry, but somebody who really respects the craft of beer. I have no time for you. I have no time for you if you don't have the time to make sure you're serving it properly.
I've seen this defended in threads on Facebook, on various social platforms, and why? Why would we defend? This is like if you go to silverware that still has food all over it, is that acceptable?
No.
Fuck no, it's not. So why would we accept drinking beer from dirty glassware just because we don't care about the bubbles? Come on.
It's weird. And it's one of the, I have a set of those IPA glasses that, they come up and in and then they bulb over. Those are nearly impossible to clean.
Like Tiku glasses?
No, but there's no stem. So they come up from the bottom and then they bubble out.
Gotcha.
So
I gotcha.
They're really, really hard to clean, and I have a set of them at home, but basically what that means is I'm just never posting a picture of that beer. I'm still going to drink out of it because it's my house, but I'm not going to post that.
Not everything is for internet consumption either.
No, and you can also just take a straw. Just scrape them off. That's bad advice.
Don't do that either.
Don't do that either. It's still dirty. Just clean.
Give it a rinse. I mean, if you need a simple tip, I think obviously, yes, you want to keep your glassware as clean as possible. And bars and restaurants, breweries.
Store it upside down.
Yeah, store it upside down. Serve beer out of the proper glassware or the correct glassware.
If you can.
But give the glass a rinse before you pour your beer in it. That's going to help too.
I've actually been looking into seeing how much it would cost to have one of those sprayers installed in my house where you push the glass down on top of it. And there's been a lot of craft beer outrage platforms over the past years. I remember the battle against the shaker pint, and bars are never going to stop using the shaker pint. Mm-hmm. They're just not. It's stackable. It's cheap. It's easy. It's fine. It's the worst beer. It's the worst glass to drink anything out of. I understand that. I've seen the science. I've read the articles, but it's not going away. But shaker pint.
And it's funny. We're talking about this this is almost from a hygienic standpoint. I was, from the marketing side of it, there's never an excuse to post a picture of a beer in a dirty glassware. What does that say for your brand?
It says terrible things. It says I'm dirty, and I'm okay with that.
And a dirty shaker pint at that, right?
Right?
Come on.
Yeah.
So again, I find it. I'm just doing it because I think this is fun because I love this. Especially when we're talking about the marketing side of things, and when I think of marketing with beer these days, a huge component of that is imagery. Whether it's coming from the end user that's drinking the beer or from the brand themselves, it's huge. And people are drinking with their eyes before they're drinking with their mouths. If you're not taking the time to make it look good, and I've said this before, you stage your picture with all kinds of ingredients. You might pour fruit out if it's a fruited sour or something to that effect. And then you got little bubbles all over the glass, and it just looks like shit. Don't do it.
The one other thing is we can tell if you're using portrait mode on your iPhone to take the pictures.
I love portrait mode.
It is great, but it's terrible for glasses because the top ring of the glass always disappears,
I know.
and the top part of the can always disappears.
What's up with that?
I don't know. It needs to get better because I'm definitely guilty of it too because I don't always actually have my camera with me. Mm-hmm. Most of the photos that we post from Grist House, I take on an actual camera.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, all I have is my phone, and I'll flop it into portrait mode because it's way better than the normal picture. But like half the glass disappears. I know.
When I first got my iPhone 8 and upgraded, and I was all excited, and I found portrait mode, and I'm like, "What the hell's portrait mode?" And I started screwing around. I'm like, "This is great." The first beer picture I took, I didn't even think about it. I'm just like making the background blurry. I took it, and half the glass is cut off.
Yep.
What had happened here?
Yep.
So yeah, you have to be careful with how you do that. I still use it a lot with pictures that I post. But
I don't think there's anything wrong with using it, but don't think that anybody is fooled by it.
No,
we all know.
I don't think and that's something like I don't even think that's something people are trying to fool other people with.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think that's just something that iPhone's going to have to improve.
Yeah, I don't actually have a problem with it. I just think it's funny when you see all these pictures and you're like, thank you for taking the time to make sure that the picture was nice, but also half the glass is not there. Just a heads up, you might want to look into that.
Well, what should brands be cognizant of as they develop their social media presence and their overall brand visibility as a whole?
I think consistency. I think that the word brand is getting thrown around a lot today without definition necessarily. Is that people think your brand is just your logo and what you sell. And it's not. It's literally I'm going to try not to say literally. I know people hate that. It is literally. It's
in context, it's fine.
Every single thing that people associate with you is your brand. So your brand is your logo, yes, and what you're selling, yes, but it's also every single piece of media that originates from you. It's the menu that you print out and is inside your bar. It is the labels on your cans. It is the website that you're showing people. It is each individual graphic that you releases. All those things should be consistent and should make sense with one another, because then the second somebody sees a graphic of a can release without even seeing who it's from, they know who it's from. They know what they're looking at. They know which newsletter they're looking at. Not necessarily by the logo, but just by the feel and the way it looks as a whole. And I think that making sure that you have templates, making sure that you have a specific way that everything is produced. So, for example, on our Instagram page, we have 2 saved stories. One is our currently in stock cans, and one are our upcoming can releases. And all those graphics look exactly the same with the words in the same places. They're just different cans. And that way, when you're going through the story, everything looks cohesive. Mm-hmm. But then also a nice little kickback of that is it's very easy for me to produce these graphics. Is I already have the template set up. I already know where everything goes. I just need to swap out one can for another, change the dates, and get it on out. So if you're making sure that your brand is cohesive and that your brand makes sense, not only does it make you stronger and more recognizable to your consumer, it makes it easier on you in the long run. because you know what it's supposed to look like before you ever even make it.
I think it goes back to what you mentioned before with just having systems in place, having a consistent approach with a strategy tied to it. That's really what it comes down to. It's going to make life easier if you're able to set yourself up. And this is huge because, again, there's a lot of photos and videos pulling at people's eyes these days. So being able to recognize something with, and they've determined they want to be a fan of it, when they see it, they go, ooh, I'm going to stay here for a minute and see what's going on, versus just dismissing it super quick. So
exactly. It's not always just being the flashiest thing. It's about making people comfortable with the media that you're producing.
Indeed.
And, it's the content, which is just the worst word, isn't it? Content. Well, because it's all I do, but everybody's like, oh,
that's actually,
content.
I have it in my job title, but
yeah,
well,
sure.
It is what it is.
It is.
I mean, that's
absolutely. And you want to make sure that the content you're producing is not only resonating, but is just recognizable. Mm-hmm. I have seen things go out. I've seen it for an event without a logo on it and been like,
oh, don't get me started.
Where is this?
What people spend money on and then don't look at the spelling to make sure.
Who is this for?
Right.
I shouldn't have to read the entire poster. This is we'll say it's an 11 by 17 poster on a wall in a bathroom. I shouldn't have to stand there and read the whole thing. I should know what's going on pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I get it. Sometimes it's, you think you've got it all down and there are things that you're missing. But once you have rules in place, even like if it's a can release, then we put out this content. If it's a beer festival we're attending, we put out this. Mm-hmm. But to have those rules for yourself, to know that every Monday morning you go in, the first thing you do is change the website from the weekend. Make sure that your Untapped menu is up to date. It's that kind of stuff. And it's the really, really, honestly, it's the most boring part of my job. And it is by far the most important. I love the creative part, and I love talking to people, and scheduling things and making sure everything is up to date is boring and it's a snooze fest, but it's honestly the most important part of my job because it's for the people who are looking for it.
Yeah, and the people that support you.
Exactly. I want to make sure that they have the easiest time knowing what's going on.
That's perfect. And how foolish would you look if they go and there's an event from 3 weeks ago that's still happening now, or however you have it listed on your website. It's bad.
I have seen ones that have been up for years.
Certainly.
And it's...
Oh, I'm going through Twitter and finding as many breweries to follow as I can, and doing the same with Instagram. And this was probably 3 weeks ago. I found one that had their header image on Twitter was coming in 2015. So they've been open for, I don't know, what's that for you? I'm like, the image looks awesome, but it says coming in 2015.
There's a couple of breweries who I've looked for who have apparently since closed, but if you media or their website, you'd assume they were still there.
This goes up. I don't understand that as a whole, and this is an example that I ran into, I think it was last year, in my neighborhood here in Pittsburgh in Mount Lebanon. My favorite Chinese place happened to be closed. Mm-hmm. I was wanting Chinese for dinner. So I called the other one down the street. They answered their phone saying their name, and when I started putting in my order, they go, "Well, we're closed." Like, what?
Why would you answer?
We're not open anymore. Like, why did you answer your phone saying your restaurant name? And second, why did you answer your phone at all?
That's wild.
Why are you there to answer your phone if you're closed? It's like weird. And so, the website didn't say anything either. It was still open to anybody that wasn't actually walking up to the door and seeing the doors locked.
Yeah,
thought they were still open.
Weird. I have also found businesses now who have full inboxes, which I don't understand.
Voicemail. I don't agree with it, but I see.
A bar, like, it doesn't make sense. I understand people. I don't understand people.
That is different. Yeah,
it's different, but
boy, we really were trying to tackle things that we probably shouldn't be trying to tackle.
No, never mind.
Stay in your lane, Bailey.
Stay in your lane.
Well, let's get ready to wrap up here because I think we've covered a lot of good stuff today.
I told you I'm a chatterbox.
I know. Well, hey, it's good. This is what you
Don't
come onto a
shut up,
podcast for. We're here to talk.
know.
We're here to chat. So you did good.
Shockingly, the person
Is this your
who's-
podcast debut?
Somebody else's podcast, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Other than yours?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
was short-lived.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Well, maybe after today you're going to be inspired to bring that show back.
Maybe. I'd love to. I just need good guests. Oh.
Well, give me a call. We'll see what happens.
Do you like to talk about ghost stories? Because I like to talk about ghost stories.
Is this what your podcast is about?
Yeah.
Hard pass. So as we get ready to wrap up here, let's talk about a subject. I feel like we spent a lot of time talking about social media, and for good reason. It's
really
very
important.
important. It's what's driving brands these days. But outside of that, where do you feel brands should be present to help bolster their image outside of using Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and YouTube? And we could go down the list. But outside of that realm, where would you find yourself?
For me, personally, I want to say in the artwork, just because that's the other thing that I do. And it's probably my favorite part of my job is working on the can designs and working on what it is that everybody sees when they see us. And I've always been a bit of a packaging nerd. My mom was a graphic designer and used to work in this insane building that just smelled like paint thinner, and I probably shouldn't have been there as a kid. And I used to, pick up all the markers, and that probably wasn't good for my brain either, but that's okay. But when, all through my life, I would go to the supermarket and look at the things on the shelf, and I am the person who is going to grab the pretty thing. Mm-hmm. I go to the liquor store, and I am going to grab the pretty bottle. It seems really shallow, and I get that, because the very most important thing is what's inside the can. But I want to make sure that everybody knows from the outside that the inside is damn good.
Yeah, you hit on something big, because especially in beer, when you walk down a shelf, the big guys are paying a lot of money to have eye level.
Absolutely.
And they are also, in that same respect, that they're getting eye level spacing or placement, I should say. They're doing imagery now for their crafty brands that stand out and will try to mirror what a craft brewery does, and putting a lot of time and effort into making their imagery look good. So it's super freaking important these days to have a can that looks good, because even if we shop or the bottle shops, grocery store shelves, whatever, if your cans look like shit on the outside, it's a perception thing. It doesn't necessarily mean what's inside is bad, but people will think, because again, drink with their eyes first, thanks to Instagram. Thanks to Twitter.
Right. And this was another hard thing that I needed to figure out when I first started working there. And maybe this is something for a different podcast. I'll just get it in as quick as I can, is to decide whether to do something like, think like Southern Tier's packaging, is that all their stuff looks exactly the same. It's basically just varying on color. Every once in a while they have one that's a little weird, that has some more design elements to it. And that's cool, because it's immediately recognizable. Or do you do something that's crazy and is always crazy, and maybe it doesn't always resonate? And we tried to go in between. So all of our cans are at least similar in some way, but they can really push the boundaries of where the lines are. Like the logo is almost always in the same place, the name of the beer. But I wanted to make sure that they were different enough that their Grist House can, they wanted that can. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about that is, first of all, people want it just because it looks cool. But then once they have it, they want to take pictures with it because it looks cool.
Yep.
So then everybody's posting with it. Yep. And it seems it is the less important side, because, again, that pretty can isn't good. I don't care. And I never being into craft beer has been my most useful asset in this job, is because I do care about this. And I don't just care about selling beer. I care about selling good beer. I think that everybody still make sure that the cover's real pretty. And, I mean, it seems shitty, but
that's a great way to say it. Absolutely right.
You just got to make sure that the cover still looks good. And I see a lot of other brewers posting... there's a subreddit called The Brewery. Are you familiar with this? Mm-hmm. So it's almost all actual brewers posting, and a lot of them will post pictures of a hazy IPA saying, sorry guys, had to pay the bills. Because right now it's seeming kind of like you're just playing to the masses if you're doing a New England IPA or if you're doing it to sell it, but you need to make the stuff to sell in order to make the stuff that you love. Until people start buying lagers, I don't believe that it's the next big thing. You can tell me that all you want, but I've made several of them and they don't sell nearly as fast as the stuff that looks good. Yeah, and it's fine. I love me a New England IPA, don't get me wrong. But you need to do the things to get yourself out there in order to really produce something incredible.
All right, and that's going to do it for session 15. I'd like to once again thank Bailey Allegretti for joining me on the show. Full disclosure, I did have to cut off a small segment of the end of our conversation there. There was a weird mic issue that you could have heard everything, but I didn't want you guys to have to suffer through all the popping sounds, so we got all the good stuff out there. Me and Bailey did go a little long, but that's okay. I felt like we covered some really cool stuff for you guys. Hope you feel the same. If you'd like to check out what Bailey is up to at Grist House Craft Brewing and see what the brewery is up to overall, you can follow them at gristhouse.com or jump over to their social media accounts at Grist House on Instagram and Twitter and look up Grist House on Facebook as well. And if you'd like to get that newsletter that Bailey and I discussed through Grist House, just jump over to their website and you can find the subscription link on the homepage there. Thanks for joining the show. We'll have her back in the future, no doubt about that, to talk. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed the show and took a little something from this that you can implement. All right, next week on the Breaking Brews podcast, I'm going to beer podcasting here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mr. Douglas Durda of the Should I Drink That podcast will be joining me in the studio, and we're going to talk about all manner of things have changed since Doug started his podcast all the way back in 2006 when podcasting wasn't even really a thing yet. So clearly Doug has seen a lot since his show first hit the podcast waves, and I was happy to have him in the studio to catch up with him, and we had a lot of good conversation. So tune in next week. Session 16 of the Breaking Brews podcast will feature the one and only Doug Durda of Should I Drink That? If you'd like to get to know Doug a little bit better before you tune into our show next week, you can go anywhere that you listen to podcasts and look up Should I Drink That? And you'll be able to catch up on some of Doug's shows and see what he has going on with his podcast. So that's it for today, boys and girls. We'll be back next week, session 16 with Doug Durda. Until then, I am your host, Jason Cercone, and this has been The Word of the Port.